The following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network. Welcome to RTW Main Event, which used to be a hard-hitting, in-depth, cutting-edge look into the world of professional wrestling. And now we basically do whatever the hell we want. So without further ado, here's your host, Radicalized Rob Francois.
Content.
Hey guys, welcome back to RTW Main Event. I am your host, Rob Francois. I hope everybody's doing well all around the world, and thank you for being here. I have a very special guest this week, a different kind of guest than we typically have on the show. Because now, like the intro says, I just pretty much do whatever the hell I want. It's my show, it's my rules, and, I have the right, I reserve the right to change things as they go. So, many of you may know who this is. He used to be a star on, on the hit show Bering Sea Gold on Discovery Channel, which I believe is in their 15th season or something close to that. He has been described as being a little odd, maybe a little off kilter, but we're gonna get into it. We're gonna see what this man is really all about. Welcome to the show, Mr. Steve Riedel. Good evening, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
So,
Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm just outside of Nashville. I'm originally from Connecticut. My wife is from here, and we met. Oh. We actually met online, Steve, in 1998 in an America Online chat room. Oh, wow. Old school. Old school. So before Match.com, before all that, we were the original success stories from the internet. So, nice. Yeah, it's a funny story. So I would like to get to know you a little bit better because, as we've seen over the years, we've seen you on Bering Sea Gold, and you're not always portrayed in the best light, I guess. The magic of editing, so to speak. But for those of you that don't really know, what you're all about, let's kind of start with your early years. Have you always been in Alaska? I came to Alaska when I was 3 from Oklahoma City. Okay. My parents had been in Alaska during World War II, so they loved it and they always wanted to come back. So they came back, and when I was 3 and 57, and I lived most of my life in Alaska. I spent 3 years in Orange County in Anaheim, actually, as a surveyor. So I got to know Southern Cal really well. It was a fabulous time. I really enjoyed it. And then we moved back to Homer, and I was raised in Anchorage. And so was mostly my ex-wife, the mother of my children, the mother of Emily. She was pretty much raised in Anchorage. So, I don't know if you have a typical Alaskan because it's so big and so diverse, but right. For Anchorage, I was fairly typical. I skied, I downhill skied. Snow machines kind of were really coming of age. I had one growing up, never really liked them a whole lot. Some, I guess, when I was a kid. And I downhill skied. I raced for the university, downhill and cross country combined. Then I had a career as a surveyor, land and construction. I worked, after the pipeline was built, I worked on the pipeline. They did a bunch of cathodic protection on the pipeline. So I did some of that work, and we dug up the pipeline for miles, hundreds of feet anyway. Yeah. So at any rate, I'm trying to, then I re-met my future wife and then got married and had twins right away. And she has 3 older siblings, Emily does. And so we had Emily actually in Southern California when we were there. Oh, wow. She was somewhat unexpected, if you will. Yeah. You should expect these things doing what you do. But right. Then, when there's that mystery, and so she was somewhat of a surprise, but we were glad to have her, and we had her, and then moved back to Homer, and
she was raised in Homer. She doesn't remember anything of Southern Cal,
So, anyway, was it a big culture shock from going to Alaska to Southern California?
Oh, and it was splendid too. My parents, they took me on some really big road trips when I was a kid. So I was, as travel goes, I was a really good traveler just because I knew how. It'd be these massive road trips with 4 children and so, going around, picking up and going to Southern California, that wasn't too far out of, things to do, but right. Yeah, the heat and I have surveyed in pissing rain in my career in Alaska. Yeah. We're talking like, you don't stop.
Yeah.
In Southern California, the second raindrop is your fault. Get in the truck.
Right.
That culture is, night and day. Yeah. Because I've surveyed, well, I was mostly escaping, but typically the day was 55 below with about a 15 mile an hour wind. That was a day. It did get worse. It got 55 below with a 60 mile an hour wind, but that was just save your life and go back to camp. But, I've surveyed in some gnarly weather, and in California, of course, it's beautiful almost all the time.
Right.
Really, it was like, I didn't mind the 100-degree weather because it's like, wow, how fun is this?
Right. So I've heard in Alaska you have like hours and hours, like just days of daylight, really. Like how does the daylight schedule kind of work in Alaska? Because I've seen a lot on the show where, it's... this year when Sean was going to go, fight at the docks, it was, 10:30 at night and it was, broad daylight. So how does it work there?
Yeah. Wow. You're right south of the Arctic Circle there in Nome, and which is official 24-hour sun actually for 24 hours on the solstice, the summer solstice. But as far as like culturally, what happens is, and I still do this more than 60 years in Alaska, and I still fall into it sometimes. And that is that you work later and later. And then pretty soon it's 2:00 in the morning. And you're still up and going and you're like, I better go to bed because I got 8 o'clock
right
tomorrow, and then you fall back and you get back into it. But in the villages, they just rotate their clock all the way around. So they're waking up at 6 in the afternoon, in the evening. They actually rotate 24 hours or 12 hours, 12. And you just go because it's sunlight all the time. And then you're exhausted and then you figure it out. And then you start kind of like slowing down a little bit. But, it is a time. This is Alaska in the summer. It is an intense time to produce. You got to produce. You got to do your thing because winter's coming, and winter's long and hard.
Yeah.
So it's sort of embedded in you, even in humans, that time, that summer is precious to. Well, now you can translate it to play hard. You can.
Yeah.
If you got the money.
Yeah.
So you translate it to play hard, and you just go up there and you just, there's so much beauty and so much incredible things to do in Alaska that you can do it for 24/7 for 2 months, and that's not a problem. Then you sleep later.
Right. I remember watching a movie called Insomnia. I think it was with Al Pacino and Robin Williams, and Pacino had to go to Alaska to find this serial killer, and he hated it. His character hated it because he couldn't sleep. It was always bright. It was always daylight. He was in a hotel and he couldn't get it dark enough. So, obviously, I'm sure you get used to it after a while, but do you have to darken the rooms, or do you have any like darkening blinds, or, how do you sleep with broad daylight?
Remember, the yurts I had at Steve's World, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Remember those?
Yep.
That one, the one that was my quarters, and I shared with Brad one season and Ted Danger another season, that you could darken it almost pitch black.
Okay.
That's how good I had the skylight, covered the skylight with this much insulation, all the windows, and I put a down sleeping bag in front of the door. It could get pitch black in there. That's the way I sleep. Yeah. That's why I like to sleep, is in the dark. It's much better for you.
Yes, I agree. And that's something that you don't typically see, that kind of housing. I mean, is that local to Nome or Alaska? Or, I mean, is that just a sea thing, or is it local to you guys?
Well, the yurts, they're a Mongolian thing. They're a Mongolian semi-portable shelter.
Gotcha.
And that's what the yurts are. Nomad Shelter makes about 85 of them a year. Mm-hmm. And I bought that from Nomad Shelter, and it's real easy to portable. That's the typically the smaller one they make. And yes, I love them for what I had them. Gold mining, they're just a treasure because they're a real good building, and they're easy to heat in the summer. I mean, they're good summer building.
Yeah.
So I had those for 2 years. Yeah, I rocked it. I saved a lot of money, and Dredge 6, that location is so beautiful. It was up on the hill, and
yep.
And so I really enjoyed those yurts up there.
So what made you get into gold mining? Were you into it well before the show, or when did the love for gold actually start?
Oh, I don't love gold. Don't mistake me for someone who loves gold.
Okay.
No,
fair enough.
I only like gold for many good reasons.
So you don't have the fever.
There's no love for me. You're not going to see me pie-eyed looking at a pan, thinking there's more in it than there is. That's not me. It's a practical thing. First of all, gold is practical, very in so many ways, and then even scientifically, it's got a lot of practical uses scientifically. So and industrially. So we'll start there. No, I was invited to go gold mining. Zeke invited me. He was inviting everybody. Yeah, everybody was invited. Let's go gold mining. He'd only done it 1 year on a string budget. And it was the Clark was that year was a piece of junk, and then the first year that we worked on it was only slightly better.
Yeah,
But as far as why I came up, well, I had been unemployed because of a shoulder wound for 3 years. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty much going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. I couldn't find work. Finally, my shoulder was much better, and I couldn't find work. I was looking for work 4 days a week, and nothing was happening. I got this invitation. It was like, what the heck? I'll go up. And I went up.
Yeah.
And actually and I threatened to leave a few times, but Original Productions actually gave me a little money.
Okay.
They gave me like $1,200 or something to keep me around. Yeah. And yeah. That's how it was. But yeah, I just went up on a lark, and I was totally broke, and it didn't matter. I couldn't find work. It was like, what the heck? I'm not doing anything, just spinning my wheels. So yeah. I went up there and lightning struck it. I mean, I had a ball with it,
So Zeke has obviously been a friend of your family for quite a while, correct?
Oh yeah, I know his dad since high school in 1972.
Oh, okay. That's a long time. Yeah, that's quite a long
father,
time.
Yeah.
So
I know his father forever.
So him and Zeke and Emily have been friends for a long time as well, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's a little older than her, so they weren't in the same cohort. But yeah, they know each other and for a long time. Yeah.
Watching the first season of the show, they didn't really portray Emily in a great light. They kind of made her look whiny and kind of bitchy, and obviously her and Zeke were going through whatever personal issues that they had. But I mean, how far or how different is the show to actual what was going on in real life, like during that time?
Well, I think that if you have, a relationship going on, like they were boyfriend, girlfriend, and if you film a relationship and then you clip 95% of it and you just go for the whiny bitch, you're going to find a normal person, 5% what comes out of her or his mouth is going to be whiny bitch, especially in a relationship where things are intense, a lot of intense feeling, and the downtimes will be to the whiny bitch. And I think Emily has got a normal amount of whiny bitch. I would say Zeke does too.
Right, yeah.
Zeke's got, whether they showed him a whiny bitch at all, he's got it. He's got churliness. He's got short-sightedness, or, semi-narcissist, whatever he's got going. He's got it going. He's like a normal human. So if you cut out 90% of what he says and go for the worst part, you're going to find a pretty crazoid Zeke. So it's not all manufactured, Zeke is an incredible talent at certain things. He's got brilliance at certain ways of thinking. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate him for it, but he couldn't engineer his way out of a wet paper bag. He's not an engineer.
I mean, they make him seem like he is on the show. I mean, he comes up with all these mad scientist stuff, but okay.
He's not at all. They're being not unfair, but they're not unfair because it's fiction. Everyone knows this is a pseudo reality fiction.
Yeah.
Reality TV. See, the TV part means fiction,
right?
In dog whistle language or whatever,
right?
So we're going to make Zeke out to be not just a genius in the way he is, but genius in other ways, and mysterious and strong, or and competent, or whatever, in ways he's not. Yeah, and I think that's fair. I really do.
That's funny to learn that. Obviously, over the years they've kind of gone through his dark times, and very, very personal on the show. And I'm kind of surprised that he let that show, but I mean that was legit, right? Like, I mean, I know a lot of it's produced and all that, but I mean
I tell you, let me say, this is something that brings up something that I think is very important about TV in general, reality TV in general, and that is they will miss the mark on events, and they will either not be there, or they will, because they're stupid and they didn't come, or they'll film it and they won't show it because they really didn't get it. And this is one of those places where I think the despair of Zeke was not, really fairly captured.
Really?
Because he loved him, and they were brothers. They were functionally brothers. And they were also not only functionally brothers, but experientially. I mean, he was 27 and they had never really been living in a different city. They'd moved back to Homer together. And then when he, turned 18, he was in Homer. So they were super, super close. And I was close to him too. I mean, everyone was, that was part of the shock of the death, was that everyone knew him. Everyone loved him because he was very lovable guy, so it was a big loss.
Yeah, it was very, very sad to see, and then how everybody grieves in their own different way, and obviously Zeke did things his own way, and took some time off from the show, and really admitted that he was going through some issues with substance abuse or whatever. But I mean, it was hard to watch.
Yeah, and what the TV captured again. TV didn't capture any of this. Is the man who saw him shoot himself was on the show,
Yeah.
I'm brain farting his name. Come on. Glenn LeBaron.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Glenn had two seasons. Glenn is an excellent gold miner, and he really doesn't think he's the best gold miner in Nome. That was a moment of weakness in his, what comes out of your mouth.
Right.
But Glenn has one of the best machines I've ever helped run. I top guy for him. I've tendered for him a few times, and the machine he uses is incredible. And I actually got to use it underwater. I don't know if it made TV, but he gave me some lessons about how to use it, the Dragon, underwater. But he saw John shoot himself, and that, I'm sure the shock was just more than he could manage.
Right. Yeah.
And none of it, we weren't close to him at all. We just met him. Mm-hmm. So he didn't have anyone he could really rely on. Anyway, that's Zeke. Zeke, amazing guy, a prophet, not an engineer, dependable. No, I'll tell this in front of his face. I'll tell him that you make the first year dredge every year.
Right.
There's no improvement.
Right. How's your relationship with him? Are you guys tight?
Well, he's his own man. He's very much his own man. So he's hard to get tight with. But yes, if I called him up and I had an issue and I needed some rescuing, he would rescue me.
Nice. That's good to know.
Yeah, jump in his motorboat or whatever, or car, or he'd jump on an airplane, and he would come get me away from where I was. So yeah, he's got my back, but we're not exactly the same generation either. So,
true. I mean, does he look at you as like a father figure?
No,
not at all. Okay.
No, not at all. No.
Interesting. No. That's interesting. Okay.
It's a good thing too. No, in fact, if he does at all, it's to be cautious about me.
Okay.
Because he, he's his own man. Again, his dad's a great guy, and his dad did a great job of raising him. But he sees his dad, I think, as sort of an equal, rather than a revering thing. So I wouldn't want him to revere me or even see me as an equal, because I'm not his equal. I'm much smarter than him.
I'm glad you said that.
Far. I'm far away. I'm smarter than Sean too. I'm just not as good as gold miner.
Right.
If I was as good as gold miner and smarter than Sean, look out.
Let's talk about Sean and some of the other characters on the show. It's fascinating to learn what's actual, truth and what's not. Especially when it comes to the season that's airing right now with all the turmoil between him and the Kellys. How much of that is actual legit heat between them?
You see, I wasn't privileged to see any of that happen.
Okay.
Except, I lived with the Kellys 2 seasons.
God bless you.
2. Yeah. And I didn't realize the depth of their depravity until a year after. I didn't understand how far, especially, both, you put lipstick on a pig, it'll still be a pig. Discovery portrays Chris as the nice guy from Brad. No, Chris is Brad with lipstick.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, he's as dangerous and as nefarious a person as Brad. He's got charisma, and it's fun. He's fun. He's a hell of a TV person. That intensity Chris has, that wit is real. Yeah. That is really, I don't know how well it comes across, but Chris is really, really sharp and super good for TV. I mean, his twist on life is what his brain's gone through. He's great. He's genuinely crazy.
I think he was meant for TV, honestly, because he does come across as a real natural character, and they do portray him kind of as the good guy, just trying to make it, life's always beating him down, and he's trying to make it. And, he blames everything on his dad or his brother. So,
well, his dad is horrible to him and steals from him all the time.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Well, he probably steals from his dad when he can.
True. Well, what about Andy? Like, how much is Andy anything like his brother or his dad?
No, Andy is like Andy's he's a thug. There you go. He's a thug.
Yeah.
Andy's a thug. Yeah, definitely. Brad's the brains of the operation. Chris is the motivation, and the front man, the charisma, and Andy's the backup man, the guy that Chris runs to when he gets himself in trouble.
Yes, that's true, as he did this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you notice the sucker punch. I mean, it's a sucker punch.
Yeah.
You come up behind a guy, and that was totally unfair and uncalled for. You know, Sean can yell and yell and yell. Both those guys are big guys. They can take being yelled at. Hitting him was out of control, but that's just the way the Kellys are. They're out of control. They were raised in a meth lab. For crying out loud. 20 years, Brad had a meth lab. And he'd go from town to town to town, about 18 months every town.
Yeah.
And he'd make meth and he'd deal it. And then the police would sniff him out and then he'd leave. You know, and being raised in a meth lab, you can imagine how perfect you are for TV.
Oh, absolutely.
You're perfect.
Yeah.
Because you have to have a front all the time. You always have a front going.
And they're always hustling. I mean, Chris is always trying to find the next get-rich scheme, and I'm sure Brad did too. I'm sure he learned it exactly from his dad. And, growing up as, your dad being a grifter, I mean, how do you think you're going to turn out? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's natural. It's natural selection. So,
they had a Ponzi scheme going. They were trying to sell a Ponzi scheme to Discovery to film them making a Ponzi scheme with a gold claim, and Discovery ran like a chicken rabbit. It ran away from that because it's collusion.
Yes,
and so they just stopped. But Brad actually suggested it.
No kidding.
A number of years ago. Yeah, in about 2015, he actually bought the claim too, a worthless claim out on this river about 20 miles from Nome east.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
They
are fun to watch. Let's just say that. So,
God, they are. They're brilliant.
Now, you are also fun to watch when you are on the show, I've always enjoyed watching you. I've always been entertained just because of your crazy antics on the show. And how close is the character on the show to you? In real life, because talking to you sound like a completely competent, brilliant person, well-spoken, articulate person. And on the show, they just make you think like you're a crazy, lazy bum.
And it's a hoot because they've taken every opportunity to film me doing things that are chill, and look chill. But the thing is, I'm wound up pretty tight, and I got to find a chill place just to bring myself to normal.
Okay.
So so I'm a go-getter. I'm kind of a little what they call hyper aware, hyperactive, or maybe ADHD is another word for it. I got that going. I'm going about 40 amps worth all the time. So when I'm trying to tone it down, they're filming me trying to tone it down, which is Steve's a lazy, kind of a little bit of a doofus. And, it's okay. I don't mind that really, because there's a little bit of experimental doofus in me, a guy that's willing to bet $10 on a donut. Or whatever. I don't know what metaphor to bring up, but I do have that side of me that's very experimental. It's very creative, and I like to go there. I like to live in it because it's a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun with it, that creative side. And so if you split and cut and dice and everything, you get Steve in this little box. Well, I'm not really in that box. I'm more of a a little more well-rounded, I hope, far more well-rounded than that. And, so there you go.
I mean, that's kind of what I assumed, especially, seeing some of your posts like in the Bering Sea group on Facebook, which you are active in from time to time. And you're not afraid to, tell the truth and tell everybody what's really going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I got in a lot of trouble. Original Productions, boy, the whole, Brad Kelly is a meth dealer. Just that was, because look, I mean, think even for my daughter, look, the Kellys go away, the show goes away.
Yeah.
So they don't want the Kellys to go away. So the fact that I'm bringing up the meth dealing, it's like, don't say that because the Kellys might have to go away. They don't want that. That's the bread and butter. And I hate it too. I wish it was not true because I love the show. I love the fact that Emily, I love the fact what it gave to me and the experiences it gave to me. Hell, it was like, whatever happens, I was just a bum surveyor. I didn't have any, that was just bam, lightning strikes. Yeah. And it was fun. And, and I actually be able to pretend I was a gold miner for a few years. I mean, they gave me money to do that. Who gets money to be a gold miner?
Right. I assume that they paid everybody to be on the show. That's correct.
Yeah, that's correct. I was paid I started with zero. First year, $1,000 or $1,100 or something. Second year was about 170. Third year was 200. Fourth year was like 215.
Gotcha. Okay. Vern. Is Vern... Vern is quite a character. Is he as grumpy and as pissy as they portray him on the show? And they kind of portray him as being just inadequate to run a ship. But I know he's got maritime experience before this. So,
Vern. Vern makes about. Should I really tell you what Vern makes? I know how much he makes.
It's up to you.
I don't know how much he makes on the show. I'm sure it's a lot. But in real life, he makes more than $400,000. So he's got tons and tons of money. He's been doing this. He's 75. He's been doing this forever.
Yeah.
I mean, the ship's captain and ship's pilot. Okay.
Yeah.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you think Vern's grumpy is? Give it to me. 1 to 10.
25.
Okay, 25. In real life, he's only, seriously, I think on the show, he's a 9 or 10. He's pushing 9.5.
Yeah.
Okay, but in real life, he's not that grumpy. However, it mystifies me. He mystifies me when he does his seafaring thing. Sorry. And he does, and I watch him because I've been on that boat. I've been on his boats now I think I spent 2 years on his boat, 2 seasons on his boat. And he gets like, it's like he's a beginner. Like he is. He's every time it's like he's all mad and he's screwing up and he's not giving the right commands. He's not thinking right. And finally we're underway. So it was like 10 minutes of hell trying to get, and it's like, come on, you're a ship's captain. You're competent, but you're yelling at us. What kind of 35-year ship's captain yells at his crew? Nobody needs to do that.
Right.
Just tell us what to do. But he doesn't. The guy just can make, he grabs defeat from the jaws of victory or something. I don't know what it is, but just he screws up. He can't set an anchor worth of shit. He's barely, the whole process of getting everyone gold mining. He can do that barely. But if you see some of the ways he worked on his boat, my God, his boat's just a piece of junk, and he's got money coming out the ears. That boat, what the heck? It looks like it was just cobbled together.
I guess
I don't get it.
The only way to keep your money is to not spend it, right? He must be a giant cheapskate.
Well, the second year he had 5 dredges.
Oh yeah, that's
not a cheapskate.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's a greedy suck going for all the gold he can get, but then most of them just cost him money. He only made money, I think, on maybe one.
Well,
the Ranger. What?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. He claims to be on one of the best claims, in the sea right now this year, and hasn't produced at all.
Yeah, it's funny that I know miners that have mined that same claim for ounce an hour, and he's never been on ounce an hour.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's doing, why his boys haven't come in for him. Those are competent divers. Brian's a competent diver. Gary's competent. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. But you want to go to talk about your daughter. She has had a lot of success on the show, and obviously it's been a learning curve over the last 14, 15 years, however long it's been. But she looks like she's really, really kind of dialed it in. She has really good people working for her. She seems to be on good ground. So, how's it kind of been as your dad to watch her just kind of blossom as a gold miner, as a captain over the years?
Well, looking back, I would have expected it. Really didn't shine that much, the leadership thing, but the willingness to take risks was always a part of Emily. She was experimental. She was brave growing up. I really didn't imagine she'd go this far, but it's hard to imagine. When she bought the boat, I expected this, though. I expected success. I not out of arrogance or anything. It's just that she's smart and she listens to people and she uses all their intelligence. And so she's got a lot of good sources coming in, and she did good. She listened to people. And
she's very driven too. Very driven from what I've seen.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. She sees opportunity. She saw this whole thing as a big opportunity and went for it and did really good work getting it too.
And now she has a kid. Obviously, the show's behind a year and a half or so. Before we get into that, what was the reasoning for not showing this season last year? They held it back a year, right?
Yeah. I have no idea
okay.
what Discovery thinks.
I don't know. I mean, it's been out for so long. I don't know if it's a ratings thing or whatever, or if the show's on the way out, but yeah, it doesn't make sense to be that far behind. Do you know if they're actually recording, this past year or so that might be next season or whatever?
Well, yeah, this past summer, they were on everybody. They were okay. They were recording. And then I don't know. Have you seen any ice?
Not yet.
This year?
No, not yet.
Okay, so I did ice. I showed up for ice February 1st, and the guy that Jeff, the guy that put it all together, was 3 weeks behind and was doing a lot of typical minor gold mining mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Made bad assumptions and way behind, but we made a season out of it, and it was incredibly good weather for mining. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, me too. I've always been a fan of watching just the difference between dredging during the summer and the winter and having to cut the ice. And, your coordinates have to be almost better because you're maybe lack of landmarks or whatever. I mean, is it a big difference trying to locate the ground as opposed to being in the water or being on the ice? Or is it just is it accurate?
If you can, you find gold and then you get a good GPS coordinate on it, and then you come back in the winter time.
Okay.
And yes, you can get feet away, like 10 feet away from where you were last time.
Wow.
Easily.
It's that accurate.
So it's doable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Getting back to Emily, obviously, on the show this season, she announced that she was pregnant, and obviously she's had the baby now. What was your reaction when you found out?
Well, it was, finally she got pregnant. Yeah.
Right.
She's been hunting that one for a long time. So I was relieved that she finally got her baby on the way, and very happy for them. Yeah. I have a number of grandchildren, but none from her. So this was like the first and very exciting, and I was very happy about it.
That's awesome. Is your relationship with Emily pretty solid?
Well, yeah, except for she's a TV star and sort of puts her nose up at me sometimes. Yeah,
that's fair.
Tight.
That's fair. No, that's good. That's good. Mr. Gold. He's got the inland mine. He's got the Myrtle. Cody runs the Christine Rose. And he had Zeke going out on the smaller dredge too. So, dude's making a lot of money.
Man, well, and whenever you talk about Sean, you got to whisper those, on the backs of giants, kind of thing. Where Steve was the real anchor on that, and set him up to be where he is now. He's run with it proudly, and he's actually Sean's a smart guy. He you may look a little soft or round or like some sort of teddy bear, but he's got a lot going on back there.
Yeah.
So he deserves this success because he's a hard worker and he's smart and he's got, so he's standing on his own, but his dad set him up pretty good,
And obviously, the relationship between the two has never been, portrayed as being a real close relationship. So, I mean, that's accurate, right, from what we see on TV?
Yeah. Well, I can't speak to it. I can't. I've tried to because I've seen that on TV. But I go, have I seen enough of them together to really know how much truth that is? And the answer is no. Really haven't seen them, interact that much. Particularly, they've always been nice to me, but I've just not hung around, much. So I don't know. The one party I went to at Sean's house, Steve wasn't there. So there it is.
It's funny how
hard worker.
Yes, no, absolutely, and knows a lot and has enough experience to just know where the gold is. I mean, he's got a nose for it, and obviously, unlike Chris, Sean knows how to pan, which is always fun to watch. Chris has this huge excavator barge, and the excavator falls apart. He buys a new one. That one doesn't work, and he's making 7 ounces, and I can't imagine how much money they're burning running the thing. It's just it's kind
of more than 7.
I bet. Yeah.
So, did Chris run the excavator any?
No.
Chris doesn't know how to run an excavator yet?
I don't think so. I think James does it all.
Yeah, because we had a contest, excavator running contest. We were picking up tennis balls and putting them into a bucket, and I did it. I was the slowest guy, but I did it. And Chris got in there and Chris couldn't even, he said, "Oh, this is going to be easy because I've run a lot of video games." And so he couldn't move the bucket. He couldn't move it. He couldn't move anything, do anything. So I got a big laugh out of it.
That is hilarious. I messaged him on Instagram just to see if he would ever want to come on the show as well. And after a few days, he got back to me, and I mentioned to him that you were going to be on, and his words were, "Yeah, I really hate Steve."
Good deal.
So obviously the feelings are mutual between the two of you, but
I don't have not hate. Come on now, it's not that deep.
Okay.
But,
well,
but I know who he is. I just know who he is. I stay away from him.
And the first thing he did mention is, I do play a lot of video games. I'm like, well, okay, that's there you go. Yeah. He's of a different generation as well, but I mean, it was funny that just mentioning your name just invoked hatred. So just thought I'd pass that along to you.
I'm doing my job.
Yes, absolutely right. As we wrap it up here, Steve, and I absolutely appreciate you coming on, and there's a lot more we can get into, but overall, what was your experience on the show? Were you happy you did it?
I was very happy I did it. Discovery Original Productions didn't always play fair. Only about 40% of the time did they play fair. The rest of the time, they're a bunch of nefarious rats, both Discovery and Original Productions. I got to say that. You guys are a bunch of rats sometimes. But I would do it again in a heartbeat. I loved it. I grew so much as a person, and the money was decent, and So I'm ready to, I'll be in Nome probably a little this summer. So I haven't given up entirely, but it'll be on my own little YouTube channel or what have you.
Okay. All right.
That's experience. Good. I'm also going to run an excavator this summer, gold mining in Hope. So I'll report in on how that does.
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, I'd love to see how that goes. And I'm glad you don't have the fever, because people do stupid things when they get the fever. So, you know what I mean? Like, people have lost their entire lives and fortunes because of it. Yeah, so I'm glad you were smart enough to not, fall into that trap, because it takes a lot of people. It's taken a lot of people, honestly.
It has. Best way to make $1 million, start out with 2 gold mine.
That's fair. I really do appreciate you coming on the show and speaking with us tonight. It's One of my bucket list things to do was talk to you, and I've been a fan of the show since the beginning. I'm also a Gold Rush fan. I know maybe I have the fever, and I just haven't gone out and mined yet. I mean, maybe that's my calling, but it's really
keep your wallet.
Well, I got a 4-year-old kid and a wife, so yeah, I can't.
Oh yeah, no, you're not even ready.
No.
Yeah, keep your wallet, your money in your wallet, and just enjoy the gold mining from the comfort of your couch, because that's the best way to do it.
Right. Well, Steve, I would love to stay in touch with you, and I honestly thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. This has been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Steve. Well, there you go. A fascinating conversation with Steve Riedel, one of the stars, or former stars, of Bering Sea Gold. He did tell me off air that he was no longer contracted with Discovery, so obviously he was able to say whatever he wanted. But even when he was contracted, apparently didn't care. Didn't care that he was contracted, and still told the truth, which you got to give him credit. He's honest, clearly different than what they portray on the show, and I'm very glad that I got to speak with him. Just not as just a fan of the show, but just to kind of get to know him more, because one, he has had a limited role in the show, and like we discussed too, they didn't portray him in the best of lights. They kind of portrayed him as an idiot. So very well spoken, very eloquent, very articulate, not as eccentric as you see on the show. So I'm glad that I was able to talk to him. And I know there's a different guest than what I normally have on. And obviously, since I haven't been doing shows in the last month or so, it was kind of out of the blue. And I said, you know what? I saw him in the Facebook group, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm just going to message him and see what happened. And, and then he said he would come on, and I'm like, all right, knowing what I see from the show, I'm like, well, he could be a little flighty. Maybe he'll bounce on me, or maybe he'll flake out on me. But he was right there. I said, can you go early? He goes, yep. I'm here in the library by myself. I got the whole room to myself. Let's go. And we had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but we got it worked out. And I'm glad, because it was a fantastic conversation. So, look, I don't know when I'm going to be back, because I've been trying to kind of lighten the load and clear my schedule a little bit, because the wife has gotten on me about podcasting. At one time I had 4 shows a week, also streaming on Twitch and YouTube, and then my YouTube channel, creating content for that all the time. And happy wife, happy life. It took me 46 years to realize that you need a good man always has a strong woman behind him, and that's absolutely the case. I mean, she is the rock. She is the glue that keeps this family together. And through my own, only child selfish things and being able to kind of live out my dreams and play video games, on the internet and for people to see, and, podcasting, talking to wrestling legends and all kinds of other people. It's just me, it's a 40-year-old kid trying to live out my fantasies. Right. So, eventually it just clicked, and I said, all right, I need to lighten the load and scale back some of the stuff that I do. And I made the decision to RTW is my baby, whether it's been the original inception with, Rad Turtles Wrestling Podcast with Jeff Johnson, just talking about wrestling every week, to him leaving and me going through various co-hosts and eventually just doing it by myself and getting bored talking about wrestling because it sucks compared to what we used to watch. And then putting on the Rewind show, and it just eventually I'm like, I gotta stop. And if I'm gonna cut something back, it's gonna be this show that never has any potential, right? It's just been, it's my baby, it's my creation, it's been my love, my pet project. And look, I had fun with Ocho and Marky Mark and all them for a good year, doing the stupid funny shit that we did before, and then getting Johnny Petraglia on, and then doing the Rewind stuff was fun. But then it just got to the point where I had to I had to put the foot down and say, or my wife put the foot down really, but no, consciously I made a decision that I had to scale back. But I am so glad I had this interview with Steve Riedel. Again, another fascinating conversation. I've met so many cool people podcasting over the years. And I know this is a cliche, but I'm blessed. I really am blessed to have the opportunity to speak to a lot of people that I've either looked up to over the years or, have been a big fan of, like Steve in the show. So it was fun. It was fun, and I'm glad I did it. But as far as the future of RTW, who knows? I'll be back for WrestleMania in a few months. I will have Radmania 5 coming up. We'll do the week-long thing up until the double show on that weekend. So I definitely will be back for that. And who knows? Maybe I'll be back in between now and April with, somebody else from Bering Sea Gold or wrestling, or who knows? Maybe I'll just get a local weatherman on the show. I don't know. I mean, you never know what's going to pop up in this stupid brain of mine. But I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I'm sure we'll get a lot of new listeners and new fans that know nothing about this show but are fans of BSG and want to learn more about Steve Riedel. And there you go. I brought it to you, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back at some point. Just turn on notifications anytime I drop a new podcast, which this podcast is on all podcast outlets, or my YouTube channel, Rad Rob Gaming. Just turn on notifications whenever I go live or post a new video or drop a new podcast. You'll get it in your feed. So thanks to Steve Riedel again, and thank you all for listening and watching this episode. And we will see you next time. Take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to this edition of RTW Main Event. You can follow the show on Twitter at RTW Brand. Follow Red Rob at Rad Rob Gaming. And follow the Ocho at Real BG Ocho. We appreciate all of your support. You've been listening to RTW Main Event right here on the Rad Rob Radio Network.